Alright, hi everybody. Welcome to the video showing you the solutions to the multi-step inequalities with graphing. As you can see, I went ahead and I already put the lines by all the inequalities just like we do when we have the equal signs, okay? So I see that I have two like terms. I'm going to combine them and I end up with negative x is less than or equal to 6. Divide both sides by a negative 1, because remember there's an implied 1 here. That will give us x, and we have to now flip the sign since we're dividing by a negative. When we multiply or divide, it flips the sign. So that is now x is greater than or equal to negative 1. All right, so graphing that, we just put down the negative 1. It's a open circle, means it doesn't include the negative 1, but in this case it has the equal sign, so it does include it. So we color it in, and we'll color in everything to the right because it is greater than negative 1. All right, combine like terms here. I'm going to first write down my negative 6n, and then I have two constants I can combine, and that will be negative 1 is less than 17. Back to a two-step equation, so add 1 to both sides. And I have negative 6n is less than 18. Now I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 6. That switches my sign. Don't forget that, okay? So that gives me negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1n, which I just write as n, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So now we graph that, and we write our negative 3. So it's n is greater than negative 3, so it does not include negative 3, so that's an open circle, and it's everything to the right. Okay, again, combine like terms. I only have one n, two constants, so that will be plus 1 is greater than 7. Add a negative 1 to both sides, and we will have n is greater than 6. So we didn't have to flip the sign this time, did we? Subtracting, we don't have to, only when we multiply or divide. So we'll write our 6 here. That's going to be an open circle. It does not include 6. And look, that looks like an arrow. If you put a line here, and it's pointing to the right. So it's everything greater than 6. Yeah, open circle. Okay. Thought I did that wrong for a moment. All right, over here, this is already in simplest form. On this side, we have n, but we have two constants. Remember, they are constantly alone, and that will give us 5. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and that will give us negative 5 is less than n, and that's finished. So we're going to make our line with a negative 5. It does not include negative 5, so that's an open circle. If we think of that as an arrow, it's pointing to the left, so that is n is, oh, I'm sorry, you know what I didn't do here? I didn't switch it. I didn't write it in standard form, so if I switch this, it's n, it's still eating the n, so n is greater than negative 5. And look what happens when I switch it. I didn't do that right, did I? Because the arrow would have looked like it was pointing the wrong way. When you do it like this, then the arrow points the right way. So that was wrong, and if I had said greater than negative 5, you would have heard it, but anyway. So it should point in that direction. Okay, so don't forget to flip it and put it in standard form if you're using that hint of the arrow. All right, combining my like terms, we end up with negative 5x is less than 5. And then we're going to divide both sides by a negative 5. Since I'm dividing by a negative, what happens to the sign? It flips. So we have x is greater than negative 1. Okay, so we'll put down our negative 1 It does not include the negative 1, but it is anything larger than negative 1. All right, distributive property. Remember, I'm not just distributing a negative. That's a negative 1. The 1 is implied. So that changes this to a negative 2, and it'll change this to a negative 2m. And then we have negative 2 is greater than 6. Now I'm going to combine like terms. I have two constants, so I'll rewrite my negative 2m first. And negative 2 and negative 2 is negative 4 is greater than 6. Add 4 to both sides, and we have negative 2m is greater than 10. I'll do the rest up here, so let me just write that again since I've run out of room. I'm going to divide by a negative. That tells us switch the sign. So I'm going to switch that right away before I forget. And I have my m, and that will be a positive divided by a negative is a negative. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we'll put a negative 5 here. And if that's an arrow, it would point in this direction. And that is an open circle because it does not include the negative 5. Okay. Over here we have negative 9 is greater than or equal to, I see the distributive property has to be done, so that's negative 1, and negative 8 times 6 is 48v, and minus 1. Okay, so negative 9 is greater than or equal to, combine my like terms, I'll write my negative 48v first, and then I have negative 9. Now I'll add 9 to both sides. We have to write the 0 here because there's nothing else on that side, so whenever there's nothing else, you write the 0 as a placeholder. Is greater than or equal to negative 84v. We see another negative again, so again we're going to divide both sides by negative 48. Put it on a slant here to fit it all in. And since I'm dividing by a negative, my sign will flip. So over here, 0 divided by anything is still 0. My sign flips. And negative 48 divided by negative 48 leaves me with v. So we have 0, and it equals 0, so I'll color it in. And, oh, once again, I'm going to put it in standard form. I'm going to flip my v over to this side. It still has to open up to the v. So if you read it this way, read it from v's point of view, it's v is greater than or equal to 0. Here, v is greater than or equal to 0. So I haven't changed anything, but I have put it in standard form. Now that it's in standard form, I can see that it is pointing to the right-hand side. All right, I see the distributive property needs to be done, so I'll distribute that 8 out. So that will be 8 minus 8 times 4 is 32. X is greater than 40. Then we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. We have negative 32x is greater than 32. Divide both sides by negative 32. Did you hear it, everyone? What do? We flip the sign. So that will give us x. Instead of x is greater than, it will be x is less than, and this will be negative 1. Okay, so negative 1. It does not include the negative 1, so it's an open circle, and the arrow points to the left. Okay, distributive property. 4 times 8 is 32, minus 4 times 2 is 8b, minus 2b is less than or equal to 32. Combine like terms, and I end up with negative 10b. Oh, how many of you already saw that there's a negative number or coefficient in front of the b? What are we going to do later on? You know it. We're going to have to divide, so we'll switch that sign. Okay, and this is a positive 32. put our 32 on this side. All right, so subtract 32 from both sides, and we have negative 10b is less than or equal to 32. Now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 10, which will switch the sign. So instead of b is less than, it will be b is greater than or equal to I made a mistake right here, you guys. 32 minus 32 should have been 0. Sorry about that. That's a 0. So 0 divided by negative 10 is 0. Okay. So we have a 0 here, and it equals the 0, or it's anything that is greater than the 0, and it points that direction. Okay. I'm going to do distributive property first, so we'll just bring our 5x down, distribute that negative 7 out, so we have negative 7x minus 7 is greater than negative 9. Now we'll combine our like terms that are conveniently next to each other, so we have negative 2x minus 7 is greater than 9. Add a 7 to both sides, and we have negative 2x is greater than negative 2. I'm hoping all of you noticed, oh, it's another that we are dividing by a negative 2. Therefore, we switch the sign. So from greater than to less than, negative 2 divided by negative 2 is a positive 1. So we'll put down a 1. That's an open circle because it does not include 1, and it is everything to the left, because if we made a line, that looks like it's pointing to the left. All right. Oh, finally, something a little bit different. Okay, so this time I'm going to combine like terms, and we have 5p is less than or equal to 4 plus 6p, but we have a variable on both sides. Remember, with inequalities, we always want the variable on the left-hand side. So I'm going to move them all to the left-hand side, even though this one is larger. So I'm going to say minus 6p and minus 6p. So this will give me a negative 1p, which I just write as negative p, is less than or equal to 4. Now we're not done, because p is not alone, because it is a negative 1p. I can't have a negative by the p, so I'm going to now divide both sides by negative 1, and that means the sign will what? You got it. It will switch. So that is p switching from less than to greater than or equal to, and that will be negative 4. So we have negative 4. Because it equals it, it will be a solid closed circle, and it's pointing to the right, so anything to the right is greater than. And the last one, I don't need to simplify. All I need to do is combine my like terms, my variables together rather, and I'm going to again move them to the left just because I want them to end up there at the end. So I will go ahead and say 5, I subtracted x from both sides, so I have 5 plus 3x is greater than or equal to 8. Subtract 5 from both sides. We have 3x is greater than or equal to, 3. Cross that out. 3. Oh, we have a positive coefficient finally, huh? We haven't seen many of those. Divide both sides by 3, so the sign will not change because that's a positive number. So it will be x is greater than or equal to 1. So write our 1. Because it equals, it will be a closed circle, and again, make your line, and that looks like it is pointing to the right. All right, good job on that, and good luck with your quiz.